Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to share and subscribe the channel. The emergency pod crashed through Helio 7's atmosphere with a screech that made Lieutenant Ash Blackwood WSC. He squinted through the station's viewport as the small vessel left a trail of fire across the pale blue sky of the human outpost planet. Unidentified craft on approach, announced the station's AI. Origin, Lamria system. Ash's hand instinctively moved to his pulse rifle. The Lamria system had fallen to the Hive Collective 3 weeks ago. No survivors had been reported until now. "Security team to landing bay," he ordered, motioning to his squad. "Could be a trap." The pod's landing was more of a controlled crash, skidding across the tarmac before coming to rest at an awkward angle. Steam hissed from its ruptured cooling systems as Ash and his team formed a defensive perimeter. "Biosigns?" he asked through his comm. "One life form," replied the scanner operator. "Weak but present, non-human." Ash approached cautiously, weapon raised. The pod's hatch released with a pneumatic sigh, revealing a crumpled figure inside. Luminescent blue skin marred by bruises and burns, delicate tendrils instead of hair, now matted with a substance Ash recognized as Lumrian blood, silvery and thick. Ash was certain it was female, wore tattered clothing bearing the insignia of the Lumrian diplomatic corps. "Stand down," he commanded his team, lowering his weapon. "She's a refugee." The alien's eyes fluttered open, 3 of them arranged in a triangle pattern on her face. They were iridescent, shifting between purple and gold, and filled with terror when they focused on Ash. "You're safe," he said, though he doubted she understood. "You're on Helio 7 human territory." Recognition flickered in her eyes. The Lumrians had been Earth's allies before the invasion. "Help," she managed in broken English, her voice a musical quality like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "They coming, medical team," Ash called out, kneeling beside her. "Priority 1. Later in the medical bay, Ash watched through a window as the doctors worked. Commander Alina Vale approached, her stern features set in a frown. "What do we know?" she asked. "Her name is Vesa," Ash replied. "She was an interpreter at the Lumrian embassy, escaped during the initial attack, and why was she heading to our outpost specifically?" Ash hesitated. "She claims to have critical intelligence about the Hive Collective's next targets." Vale's eyebrow rose. "Claims she lost consciousness before saying more. Dr. Hernandez says she's suffering from radiation poisoning and severe trauma." Vale studied the alien through the glass. "Once she's stable, I want to know everything. If the Hive is planning to hit human colonies next, I'll handle the debriefing." Ash volunteered, surprising himself. Vale gave him a curious look. "Since when do security officers volunteer for refugee interviews?" Ash couldn't explain the strange protectiveness he felt. There was something about Vesa's eyes, the way they had looked at him with desperate hope. "I made first contact," he thought. "She might respond better to a familiar face." 2 days later, Vesa was sitting upright in a recovery pod, her blue skin now glowing with healthier luminescence. She flinched when Ash entered, but relaxed slightly upon recognizing him. "Lieutenant Blackwood," she said, her English clearer now after the translator implant. "You saved me." "You saved yourself," he corrected. "I just happened to be on duty when you arrived." A small smile curved her mouth, revealing pearlescent teeth. "Then I am fortunate in your duty rotation." Something about her gratitude made Ash uncomfortable. He wasn't used to being thanked. "The commander needs information about the Hive," he said, keeping his voice gentle despite the urgency. Vesa's 3 eyes dimmed, and her tendrils, which Ash now noticed resembled fiber-optic cables, flattened against her skull. "They destroyed everything," she whispered. "Everyone, my family, gone." Ash hesitated, then sat beside her bed. "I know what that's like," he admitted. "I lost my home world too, Colony XB-12. Their eyes met, and for a moment the vast differences between their species seemed to fade away. "I will tell you what I know," Vesa promised, "but first, may I ask for asylum?" Ash nodded. "You're under my protection." Neither of them realized then what those simple words would come to mean. 3 weeks after her arrival, Vesa stood before the mirror in her quarters, examining her reflection. The luminescence of her skin had fully returned, the azure glow pulsing gently with her heartbeat. Her tendrils had regained their natural movement, swaying slightly like underwater plants. The physical wounds were healing well, the invisible ones remained. A chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called, her translator implant converting her native harmonic tones to English. Lieutenant Ash Blackwood stepped in, carrying a small package. In the short time she'd known him, Vesa had learned to read some human expressions. Today, Ash seemed nervous. "The requisition officer finally processed your civilian clothing allowance," he explained, setting the package down. "I added some items I thought might help you blend in if you want to." Vesa's tendrils rippled with gratitude. "You continue to show me kindness, Lieutenant." Just Ash when we're not on duty, Ash corrected. Ash. He repeated, savoring the simplicity of the human name. In her native tongue, names were complex harmonies that changed with age and experience. He cleared his throat. There's a station gathering tonight in the recreation dome. Nothing formal, just food and music. Thought you might want to join, meet some people besides doctors and security officers. Anxiety fluttered through Vessa's secondary nervous system, causing her tendrils to stiffen. Will they welcome someone like me? Ash's expression hardened slightly. They better, besides, I'll be there. The recreation dome was crowded and noisy. Vessa wore a simple tunic and pants from the package, modified to accommodate her physiological differences. She'd chosen to leave her tendrils uncovered despite Ash's offer of a head covering. If this was to be her home now, she wouldn't hide. Conversations faltered as they entered, heads turned, whispers followed. That's the Lumrian. Heard she's the last of her kind. Should she even be here? What if she attracts the hive? Ash's hand found the small of her back, a steadying presence. Ignore them, he murmured. They'll get used to you. They found seats near a group of engineers. Ash knew introductions were awkward but civil. Vessa was explaining Lumrian dietary customs when a burly maintenance worker approached their table. Security letting anyone in these days? He sneered, alcohol evident on his breath. Even hive bait. Vessa's tendrils flattened in distress. The hive had specifically targeted her people because of their natural bioluminescence, hunting them for sport and resources. Ash stood slowly. Walk away, Donovan, he said, his hand gripping the man's shirt. I said walk away. The tension broke when Commander Vale appeared. Problem, Lieutenant? No problem, Ash replied, releasing Donovan. Just explaining station courtesy to our colleague here. Vale's gaze shifted between them, then settled on Vessa. Interpreter Vessa, I'm glad to see you joining station activities. Your intelligence reports have been invaluable. The public acknowledgement wasn't lost on the onlookers. Vale was making it clear that Vessa had earned her place later. Walking back to her quarters, Vessa found her voice. You didn't need to defend me. Yes, I did, Ash replied simply. On Lamria, we believe debts must be balanced. I now owe you twice over. Ash stopped walking. You don't owe me anything, Vessa said. That's not how this works. Then how does it work? She asked, genuinely confused. In my culture, protection creates obligation. On Earth, at least in my book, protection is just what you do for people who need it. His eyes softened. Besides, I know what it's like to be the outsider. That night, learning human music from recordings Ash had given her, Vessa realized something had shifted inside her. For the first time since the fall of her world, she felt a flicker of belonging, not to the station or to humanity, but to the space he had created around her. A space where she was not a refugee or an alien, but simply Vessa. It was terrifying how quickly she'd come to depend on that feeling. Focus on the balance point, Ash instructed, demonstrating the combat stance again. Your center of gravity is different from humans, but the principles are the same. 4 months had passed since Vessa's arrival. What had begun as casual self-defense lessons had evolved into regular training sessions. Today, they were in the auxiliary gym, working on techniques that played to Vessa's natural agility. She mirrored his stance, feeling the strange harmony of it in her body. Like this better. Now try the evasion sequence. Vessa moved through the pattern, her tendrils flowing with the motion. She had discovered that incorporating their movement enhanced her balance. When she finished, Ash was watching her with an unreadable expression. What? She asked, suddenly self-conscious. Nothing, you're just a natural. He tossed her a towel. That's enough for today. As they gathered their equipment, Vessa noticed Ash rubbing his shoulder. You're favoring your right side again, she observed. Old injury, he dismissed. Acts up sometimes. I could help, she offered hesitantly. Lumrian healing techniques are different but effective. In her quarters later, Ash sat awkwardly on the edge of her bed while Vessa prepared a bioluminescent salve, a mixture of her own bodily secretions and medicinal herbs from the botany lab. This might feel strange, she warned, applying the glowing substance to his bare shoulder. Her fingers traced the constellation of scars there, evidence of shrapnel wounds from the Battle of Proxima Centauri, she guessed. Ash nodded. Transport ship got hit. I pulled some people out, always the protector, he murmured, working the salve deeper. He winced slightly. It's what I'm good at. You're good at many things, the words escaped before she could filter them. Her tendrils betrayed her, glowing more intensely, a Lumrian sign of emotional arousal. If Ash noticed, he didn't comment, but he seemed more relaxed now, leaning subtly into her touch. Something electric moved between them, neither human nor alien, but something new entirely. When the treatment was finished, Ash rolled his shoulder experimentally. That's remarkable. The effect is temporary, Vessa said, stepping back to create distance. You'll need regular applications. His smile made her secondary heart flutter. I guess I'll have to keep coming back. That night, Vesa couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed every interaction with Ash, searching for meaning in gestures, words, silences. By Lumrian standards, she was young, equivalent to a human in her mid-20s, but she had never experienced the particular emotional turbulence now disrupting her biological rhythms. Was this what humans called falling in love, or was she merely transferring feelings of gratitude and dependency onto the first person who had shown her kindness? When morning came, bringing news that Ash had been assigned to a 2-week patrol mission at the system's edge, Vesa's disappointment confirmed what she had been afraid to acknowledge. This was more than gratitude, more than friendship. "You've gone quiet," observed Dr. Hernandez during Vesa's checkup. "Everything functioning properly?" Vesa hesitated. The doctor had become something of a confidant. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Has there ever been a case of romantic attachment between a human and a Lumrian?" Hernandez's eyebrows rose. "Not that I'm aware of, but Zen relations aren't unheard of between compatible species." She studied Vesa carefully. "Is this about Lieutenant Blackwood?" Vesa's tendrils coiled in embarrassment. Hernandez nodded. "I suspected as much. The way you light up when he enters a room is rather telling." "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone trained to observe biosignals." The doctor smiled kindly. "What does Lumrian courtship involve?" "We don't court. Partnerships are usually arranged based on complementary bioluminescent patterns, and human courtship seems confusing," Vesa admitted. "I've been studying your entertainment programs, but they're contradictory." Hernandez laughed. "That's because humans themselves don't agree on how it should work." She patted Vesa's hand. "My advice, be honest about your feelings when you're ready. Just prepare yourself. Humans can be unpredictable when it comes to matters of the heart." While Ash was away, Vesa threw herself into her work, helping to decode intercepted Hive communications. But thoughts of him persisted, growing stronger in his absence. She wondered if she would ever find the courage to speak of these feelings, or if silence was the wiser path. After all, what future could there be for them, even if he reciprocated? An enormous if. They were from worlds that no longer existed, adrift in a universe growing more dangerous by the day. Perhaps it was better to preserve what they had than risk everything for something that might never be. Ash returned from patrol with a rare souvenir, a cluster of crystalline formations from an asteroid field that reminded him of Vesa's bioluminescent patterns. It was a small gesture. When he told himself it was merely friendly, yet he had spent hours selecting the perfect specimen. He found her in the communications hub, tendrils connected to the station's interface system, a modification that allowed her to process data at unprecedented speeds. She hadn't noticed him yet, and for a moment he simply watched her work. In 6 months, she had transformed from a traumatized refugee into an essential member of the station's team. Her natural abilities with light and sound made her uniquely suited to decrypt Hive transmissions. More importantly, she had become a symbol of resilience, a living reminder of what they were fighting to protect. "Lieutenant Blackwood," Commander Vale's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Good to have you back. We're detecting unusual activity near the outer sensor array. Take a team to investigate." Duty called, the crystal would have to wait. The anomaly turned out to be more than unusual, it was catastrophic. A Hive scout ship had attached itself to the sensor array, uploading a virus into the station's defense systems. By the time Ash's team discovered it, emergency protocols were failing. "We need to manually reset the primary grid," he ordered his squad. "Raj Tors, secure that access point. Chen and I will handle the reset." They were halfway through the procedure when the first explosion hit. The Hive ship had launched its attack, targeting the station's weakened sections. Support beam collapsed, pinning Ash beneath its weight. Lieutenant Chen shouted, trying to lift the beam. "Complete the reset," Ash commanded through gritted teeth. "That's an order." Pain clouded his vision as Chen reluctantly continued the procedure. Ash felt warmth spreading across his abdomen, internal bleeding. Not good. His comm crackled. It was Vesa's voice, frantic. "Ash, respond." "I'm here," he managed, but stuck at the moment. "The station's mapping systems show structural damage in your sector." "Are you hurt?" She tried to joke. "Just taking a little break under some debris." "I'm coming to you." "Negative, stay in the secured zone." But Vesa had already disconnected. Ash tried to shift his position, only to be rewarded with searing pain. The beam had punctured something vital, he could feel it. His training told him to conserve energy, stay conscious, wait for rescue. But a more primal part whispered that if these were his final moments, there were words unsaid that shouldn't remain. Minutes felt like hours before he heard movement nearby. Then she was there, her body glowing brighter than he'd ever seen it, an emergency response mechanism of her species. "Chen, help me lift this," she commanded, her translator barely keeping up with her rapid speech. Together, they shifted the beam enough for Ash to drag himself free. The effort left him gasping, dark spots swimming before his eyes. "Medical team is locked down in Section 4, Chen reported grimly. "We're on our own." Vesa knelt beside Ash, her hands already moving to examine his wound. "I need something to stop the bleeding." Jen handed over his emergency kit before returning to the reset procedure. Vesa worked quickly, applying pressure and bandages, her face set in determined concentration. "That bad, huh?" Ash whispered. Her eyes met his. "You've suffered worse." "Not sure about that," he coughed, tasting copper. "Vesa, if I don't," she interrupted fiercely, "save your strength, I need to say this." His hand found hers, smearing blue human blood on her luminescent skin. "You're not just my responsibility anymore. You are," she whispered, tendrils glowing with intensity that lit the dark corridor. "I feel it too," surprise registered through his pain. "You do." 4 months now, tears silvery and glowing tracked down her alien features. "I didn't speak of it because I feared changing what we had. Feared losing your protection, your friendship." Ash tried to smile. "I'm not going anywhere." "No, you're not," she agreed with sudden fierceness. She pressed her hands firmly against his wound, and her skin began to pulse with concentrated light. "My people can transfer life energy in emergencies. It's not done lightly." "Vesa, don't." "My choice," she insisted. The glow intensified, flowing from her hands into his body. Ash felt warmth spreading through him, knitting tissue, sealing ruptures. "The Hive hunted us for this ability," she explained through labored breath. "They couldn't replicate it, so they destroyed us instead." As strength returned to Ash's body, Vesa grew paler, her natural luminescence dimming. He realized with horror that she was giving too much. "Enough," he ordered, pulling her hands away. "That's enough." Their faces were inches apart, both breathing heavily from exertion and emotion. "I love you," she said simply, her translator rendering the words in flat English that couldn't capture the harmonic complexity of her native declaration. "Whatever that means between our kinds, whatever comes next, I needed you to know." Before Ash could respond, the station lights flickered back to life. The reset had worked around them. Emergency systems reactivated, and the distant sound of defense weapons engaging echoed through the corridors. In the chaos of the moment, surrounded by danger and uncertainty, one thing had become absolutely clear. 2 weeks after the attack, Helio 7 station was still under repair. The administrative level had been converted to a makeshift hospital ward, where Vesa sat beside Ash's recovery pod. Though her healing transfer had saved his life, modern medicine was still necessary to complete his recovery. "Your readings are improving," she noted, checking the monitors. After giving so much of her energy to him, her own luminescence had only recently returned to normal levels. Ash watched her with newfound openness. Since their mutual confession, a comfortable honesty had replaced the careful distance they'd maintained before. "The doctors say I can return to light duty next week," he said, just in time for the reassignment announcements. Vesa's tendrils stiffened slightly. With the Hive threat escalating, Helio 7 was being reconfigured from a research outpost to a military installation. Many personnel would be relocated. "Have you received your orders?" she asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. "Not yet," Ash reached for her hand, "but I've put in a request." Before he could elaborate, Commander Vale entered, her crisp uniform a contrast to the disarray around her. She nodded to Vesa before addressing Ash. "Lieutenant, good to see you recovering." She handed him a data tablet. "Your request has been processed." Ash scanned the document, his expression unreadable. Vale continued, "It's unprecedented. The military doesn't typically account for personal attachments in deployment decisions." "But," Ash prompted, "your service record carries weight, and we need Vesa's skills where they'll be most effective." Vale turned to Vesa. "Your application for permanent resident status has been approved, along with a civilian contractor position with xenolinguistics." Vesa's secondary heart fluttered. "Thank you, Commander." "Don't thank me yet. Where you're going, you'll earn every credit." Vale's stern expression softened slightly. "For what it's worth, I think you'll both do well at Central Command. The front lines of this war aren't just on battlefield stations anymore." After Vale departed, Vesa turned to Ash in disbelief. "Central Command, Earth's orbital platform." Ash smiled. "I called in some favors. Thought you might want to see the home world I've told you so much about." Together, the hope in her voice was unmistakable. "Together," he confirmed, "though it won't be easy, there will be people who don't understand this." He gestured between them. "There have always been people who don't understand." "That hasn't stopped us before," she replied. 3 months later, they stood at the observation deck of Earth Orbital Command, watching the blue planet turn slowly beneath them. Vesa's tendrils swayed gently in the artificial gravity, occasionally brushing against Ash's shoulder. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Different from Lamria, but beautiful." "We can visit the surface next leave period," Ash promised. "There's an island chain that reminds me of how you described your home province." A senior officer passed by, giving them a curious glance but nodding respectfully. Since their arrival, they had faced their share of prejudice, whispered comments, uncomfortable questions about biology and reproduction, even a formal complaint that Vessa's natural light emissions were distracting in certain work environments. But there had been acceptance, too. A growing community of interspecies couples had welcomed them. Ash's former commanding officer had invited them to dinner. The Xenobiology Department had requested their participation in cultural exchange programs. Admiral Chen requested another briefing on hive communication patterns. "We've detected new variations in the eastern quadrant," Vessa said, changing the subject. Ash nodded. "Our understanding of their language has improved significantly thanks to your insights." "Our understanding," she corrected. "Your perspective helps me see patterns I would miss alone." That was the truth of their relationship. Together, they were more than the sum of their parts. What had begun as protection had evolved into partnership, each making the other stronger. Later that night in their shared quarters, Ash presented Vessa with a small box. Inside was a pendant, the crystalline formation he had collected months ago, now set in a simple setting. "On Earth, we sometimes exchange tokens to symbolize commitment," he explained. "I thought you might appreciate this one since it's neither entirely human nor Lumrian in origin." Vessa's skin pulsed with emotion as she lifted the pendant. "It's perfect." She hesitated. "My culture, we exchange bioluminescent patterns, unique combinations that can only be achieved between compatible pairs." She dimmed the room lights and concentrated. Her natural glow shifted through patterns she had never shown anyone, intimate personal sequences usually reserved for life bonds. Ash watched in wonder as the light played across his skin, creating shadows and highlights that seemed to reveal hidden aspects of himself. "It's like you're seeing me," he murmured. "I always have," she replied. Outside their window, Earth continued its rotation, indifferent to the small miracle taking place within its orbit. Two survivors of dying worlds finding in each other the strength to build something new. Not just survival, but a future neither could have imagined alone. The universe remained dangerous, filled with threats both known and undiscovered. But in this moment, wrapped in light that bridged their different biologies, they had found their own small piece. It was enough. It was everything.